Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to Pitch Club Live number 2. So, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are joining from. And I would like to say a wonderful hello to Mr. Andrew Churchill. Woo! How are you, Andrew? I can't hear you. You've gone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You can't hear me?
Oh, we're back. Fantastic.
You got me?
Yep.
All right.
Excellent.
I was saying happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed, yes. It is the end of my Friday. It's 4:30 here in the UK. What time is it for you?
Yeah, it's 11:30 in the morning. I can't quite have a Friday afternoon beer yet. Hey, Andrew, good to see you.
Hey, we got Andrew F. Hello, Andrew. All the way from Rochester, New York. So you're in Canada, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going down to, so I haven't, we normally get into the minus 20s.
Mm-hmm.
We're going down to minus 30. That's just nuts. But the good news is I got my ice rink boards up and the ice half poured, and be spraying the rest of the ice tomorrow.
So I used to live in Beijing, that gets pretty cold, Beijing, China, and you're in Canada, which gets cold. Have you ever had cold eyeballs?
I don't know.
I remember going to an event in Beijing a couple of years ago, and I was cycling, but it was like December, January in Beijing, and I just remember going, I've never had cold eyeballs before.
Yeah, cycling. So now I cycle with my ski goggles.
Right.
I just wear I switch out my summer cycling helmet because those are stupid in the winter, and I just wear my ski helmet and ski goggles, and it's perfect. I actually commute. I haven't been teaching at McGill this year because we've been closed down basically. Although McGill was open this fall, I just chose not to teach. But normally I commute all winter long, and it's really fun. It's flat the whole way. I have a separated path. There's only like half a dozen cyclists on it the whole way, a dozen cyclists, because most people put their bikes away and don't brave the snow. But it's fun if you grow up skiing and like doing winter sports. Cycling in the winter is not that bad.
Yeah, sounds fine.
There's no sitting on a chairlift freezing as you go up, right? You like cycling, and you're not going fast, so wind's not a big deal.
Hey, so we're not here to talk about the weather.
There you go.
Hello.
Let's talk about pitching.
Hey, Archie, lovely to have you join us. Where are you joining from? Please let us know in the chat. And let's jump in and start talking pitching. Exactly. So this is the Pitch Club Live, which is a new idea to start in 2022. And this is our second live conversation. And basically what we want to do, and the goal for this time with you and the time with our audience, is talk to our Pitch Club community. So you are an amazing member of Pitch Club, supporting it from the very beginning, coming a lot and sharing incredible feedback, which I'm always making notes. I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. And that's, that's the beauty of Pitch Club, is that we sort of learn from each other. So why don't you tell everybody what you do?
You're going straight there.
Yeah.
Do I have to do it as a pitch?
You can tell. It's that universal question. Oh, excellent.
What do you do?
In India, 10 p.m.
So I've been playing around with a different way to talk about what I do.
Great.
And I'll share it with you and see what you think. So what I want you to do is think about someone who's a great public speaker. Not like a politician, not a celebrity, not a professional public speaker, but just like a regular bloke, right? Like a colleague or a teacher, someone that you've seen on stage and you're like, they're awesome. Think about how they make you feel. Think about their voice for a minute. Think about how they stand, how they walk, how they look at an audience. What are the things that make you like what are the things that you see? Um, and then I want to pull you back to this conversation for a second and just let you know that that could be you. Like, why isn't that you? Right? And the thing you have to know about public speaking is no one's born a great public speaker. People work at it. People train. People talk to people like Martin, people like me, and you can get better at it. It's hard, but I think Martin, you probably agree with this, right? Um, it's not that hard to get pretty good. It's hard to get amazing, but it's actually not that hard. It's kind of like, if we take the analogy to like running a marathon or something, there are like millions of people who run marathons. You don't have to be a runner to run a marathon. You got to work at it a little bit, and it's kind of like that. Like, yeah, if you want to run a 3.5 hour sub 3.5 hour marathon, that's like a whole different ballgame. Like, you want to do a TED talk, you want to be like in the top 1% of people on stage. But if you just want to be in the top 10, 15% of people, like you just want to be good, you like there's nothing stopping you except a little bit of investment of time and effort and maybe a little bit of money to have someone help you get there. And that's what I do. That's what I love doing. And fundamentally, I'm a teacher, not a consultant.
Mhm.
So I don't do it with the idea that you got to come back and talk to me every time you have to do a talk. I do it as like a one-time gig of and I prefer to do it in the context of you doing a talk. So like, give me a project you're working on, we'll work on it together. And then you don't need me next time. Like, yeah, could I help you next time? Absolutely. But you don't need me. But I teach, and
Yeah.
you get better at it, and then you have that skill for the rest of your life. Somebody asked the other day. It was on LinkedIn actually. It was a poll question of, is it worth getting better at public speaking? Yes or no? And my answer was, well, maybe, because you can't get better at everything, so you have to pick and choose. So I don't think getting better at public speaking or presenting or pitching is necessarily everybody should do, because like life's limited. You got to make choices. Um, but it's certainly something that could have a huge positive impact for a lot of people.
Absolutely. What you said just then about marathon running, I think, is a really um, good frame, because, like, do you have to be? I have a friend from school who I found out is an ultra marathon runner, and he's like doing 100-mile runs across mountains and stuff like this, like crazy, crazy stuff. Um, and like, do you want to be in the top 100 in the marathon? Do you want to be the first of the 100, or do you just want to finish? And do you do it dressed up? Do you do it for charity? Do you do it for your own personal growth? And then the question that you made me think is like, what's the alternative? The alternative's the sofa. Or the alternative, that's the extreme alternative, like inactivity is one alternative. The other activity,
Right.
a 10K, a 5K, it's like, it doesn't have to be a 26-mile standard marathon. And so that has so many parallels to pitching, public speaking, presenting. It's like, do you want to be launching the new iPod like Steve Jobs? Do you want to be a TED speaker, a TEDx speaker? Or do you just want to be confident in your next team meeting on Monday, when you go in and you tell the team what you've achieved in the week, or what the vision is, or what the goals are? And I think with like marathon running, another fantastic parallel is marathon running is, we've been doing it since the beginning of time. And the other thing that we've been doing since the beginning of time is pitching and presenting.
That's totally true, right? We totally we pitch all the time.
And the guy that had to run like the classic 26-mile marathon run that was from the Greek history, the guy finished the marathon, got to where he had to be. Then he had to pitch. He had to tell somebody what the message was because he
And
was
convince them that it was true.
yeah. And so he had 26 miles to think about, remember the message, and then he got there and he's like, and they're like, so what do we have to know? And he's like, the enemy's coming, the storm's coming, the famine's coming. You know, there was a big message to be delivered. That's why he had to run 26 miles. I think that's a fantastic analogy.
Yeah, I think about it. So I do a lot, like we were talking about cycling in the beginning, right? Like what are the things we do? And I for a while was just cycling with friends. And that takes a bit of effort. Like if you want to keep up with the people I ride with, you better ride for 3 or 4 hours a week, and you're going to break a sweat and you're going to be in pretty good shape, right? And that gets you into like the top 10% or 15% of people road riding. There are other times, and I stopped doing it for a while. I was competing in masters level racing, right? I wasn't that good, but I get into the top 10 in some races. That's 10 to 15 hours a week, every week for years on end. That's like the equivalent of like the TED stage or something, right? Whereas just being good at it. And then back to your back at you with the other comment about thinking about pitching is not necessarily being on stage, right? Thinking about presenting is not necessarily on stage. I kind of think about it as anytime you're talking to more than 2, 3, 4 people.
Or even one.
Or if we go just into that pitch, right? But then we're in sort of that conversation space.
To me, I describe them as spotlight moments.
Yeah.
And you have a high value spotlight moment. What does that mean? That means when you have the attention of somebody that you cannot waste, you cannot squander, and there has to be something at the end that you agree mutually that there's a next step, or there's a decision, or there's a confirmation, or there's a release of funds, or the gate opens, or something happens.
Right.
And you were persuasive in your conversation.
And because I'm more focused in the presenting versus the pitching space, although I tell people their presentations are always pitches, I think one of my lenses is one to many. That's why when you said 1 to 1, I'm like, oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But presenting is not 1 to 1, right? Presenting's kind of 1 to many, and the many might only be 7 or 8 people. Like the many is not necessarily an auditorium.
So,
I'm working with academics. Sometimes the many is like you have to do your dissertation defense.
yeah.
Typically, that's a 20-minute presentation to somewhere between 8 and 25 people. So it's not a big group, but it's high stakes because you fail that. 4 years of work that just went down the drain.
So tell me, like, how did you? I don't know if I've ever asked you, but how did you realize, or how did you get into presenting, pitching, coaching, training? Like, how did you find yourself where you are now?
So the spaghetti diagrams about people's careers. Like it's not a trajectory. It's a freaking crazy mess that something pops out. Yeah, that's me. I'm one of those illustrations. So I started way back many moons ago, and I ran an admissions office in a boarding school. And I was in I was an assistant head. I was not only doing program development, but I was also doing marketing and rebranded the whole school. So the marketing, advertising, pitching component, I mean, I was pitching for you to give me your daughters for 4 years because it was a boarding school. So people are like, oh yeah, that's not that hard. Like school admissions, right? Well, try asking someone to like say, yeah, trust me with your kids, not only during the day, but at night too. So that was my intro to pitching, right? Was as a 23-year-old kid coming out of university. I guess 22, probably younger than that. And then I was on track to kind of stay in the school world and kind of twists and turns. I ended up pulling out of the private school. Well, I ended up getting my PhD thinking I was going to go back into the private school world. And then it just didn't make sense to me. I had kind of moved on. And I wanted to work. I didn't want to work back in the private school world. So I stayed and I wanted to stay in Montreal. And I was teaching writing, which I loved. And that was kind of the strategic communications part, right? Like I was teaching business writing. And then a class opened up. The McGill Writing Center where I was working said, I still remember this. I remember the interview. Two women there who were interviewing for this position saying, we're going to start an academic presentations class. Would you like to do it? And I had to pitch to get the job. So I did my little pitch. Yeah, I'd be great at this. Let me tell you why. And they were like, cool. I got a call on Friday morning. It's like, we're going to hire you. You start on Tuesday. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I actually have no idea what I'm doing. And that was almost 10 years ago. So I did that. And then I did that for a couple of years. And then I was at a cocktail, another random thing, right? I was at a cocktail party and I met the director of the skill sets program, teaching and learning services at McGill. And he said, we have some presentation work. I want to hire you to go out to the West Island because there's a separate campus and do this summer research cohort, do a presentation skills program for a summer research cohort. So 25 students in 2016. And that turned into 2,500 students in 2021.
Oh, wow.
So last year, it wasn't quite 2,500, but it was over 2,000. Yeah. 25 to 2,500 is a better story. It was probably like 2,100, 2,200 students last year at McGill that in some shape or form, half an hour, or some of them 10 hours, because I'm prepping them with private coaching sessions for a TED Talk type stage moment. And now professors as well. So groups like the MI4, which is a group I've done some work with at McGill, who works on immunology. So people are starting to realize that even in the professor world, right? People are starting to realize that they need support and it's not a given anymore. So it's not just grants. It's like professors who are starting, they're doing business startups coming out of technology.
I have a question.
Yep.
So public speaking is insanely powerful and really important. And at universities, which are teaching people to sort of go from school into professional life, is public speaking a sort of core focus pillar study program, or is it something that's always bolted on? It's always bolted on. So
there's probably a public speaking class in like probably the best. I think the best places that do public speaking in academia are the drama departments and the debate teams. But it's never a core. The writing class that I was teaching in the Faculty of Engineering was the reason the Faculty of Engineering does a writing class is because the Quebec Association of Engineers mandates there's a communication class in order for the certification.
Yeah.
So they're not even choosing, like the universities. They're good. Universities are getting better at this. It's coming.
But it's
These sort of
2022. I mean, it's like it should have been here. The train should have arrived at the public speaking station decades ago. Because is it because public speaking is so universal and applies to every level, every profession, every industry, every culture, that it's so sort of generic that it doesn't actually get its own course? Like you can't go and study public speaking for 3 years, but you need to do public speaking as an engineer, as a mathematician, as a physicist, as a geography, biology, zoologist, psychologist. You need to be able to public speak, but then it never gets taught. Everything that I've heard is always like, oh, we're trying to like bolt this on or add it on or squeeze it in. And yet it's so important that it should actually be something that you put on the foundation and build up from. But it seems to be just sort of like layered on top. Is that a fair assessment, or is that?
I think that's fair. I mean, I think when we look at the core programs, right, we look at like reading and writing and arithmetic and biology and chemistry and physics and like we look at like speaking's not in there, reading and writing's in there, but then that's something you were supposed to do in high school. So some universities have mandatory writing programs in the freshman year, but lots don't. And writing within the university, there's a great I'll try and find the link to it sometime, send it to you. It's an amazing talk. It's a guy out at the University of Chicago, and he talks about the difference between writing within the university and writing within the rest of the world.
The real world.
I don't like the real world expression, but yeah. And it's the difference between writing to as a display of knowledge and an exploration of knowledge, which is what a lot of academic writing is. And in university, that's all we're being asked to do, right? We don't try and convince the teacher of something. And he has this hilarious thing where he says, you know, the funny thing is if you've been in school your whole life, right? And you've done all this writing and you've been given all this feedback on your writing, but the only reason the person read the writing was because they were being paid to read it. And guess what? Once you get in the real world, no one's getting paid to read your writing anymore. So if you don't know how to write in a way that's going to compel people to finish, nobody's going to read your writing. That's why so much writing just reports get written and they just sit on a shelf. No one reads them. Because no one knows how to write in a way that compels people. And it's the same with presenting and pitching, right? Like we talk about this. How do you generate curiosity? It's like, so I call it curiosity igniting. How do you ignite curiosity so that people pay attention to the rest of the story? And that's why stories are so good. Stories, you can actually do a great presentation without a story if you use, but you have to do what stories do naturally and impose that on the way you make arguments.
Yeah.
So what stories do at some level is they just make us curious.
But they keep us focused. They keep our attention.
Keep us focused. We want to hear the next part.
Yeah.
They compel us to continue. We've all had that novel, right? Yeah. It's like 2:00 in the morning. We're like, I got to go to bed because I got to wake up. No, I'm going to read another hour. Or Netflix. Yeah. Like you binge the Netflix series, right? They get it. Yeah. They get you up till 3 a.m. when you got to go to work the next morning.
But I want to bring it back because like we met through LinkedIn and we started talking, and then we obviously have a shared focus on pitching, public speaking, presenting, helping people enjoy those moments. And then you have been amazing at coming to PitchClub. And so the PitchClub sort of, where PitchClub came from. And if anyone who's listening doesn't know, it's like a weekly community where people come and demonstrate their pitching, get more comfortable with their pitching, and then share feedback. And the peer-to-peer feedback is incredible, because we're lucky enough to have people like yourself with lots of experience, literally talking to Ugandan refugees or kids just out of school or professionals who've maybe hit their ceiling. And PitchClub is the idea of James Lalonde, a serial entrepreneur in China, who was frustrated at how little experience people were getting at pitching, which is what we were just talking about within your journey into your sort of experience of like, universities are saying we need to teach public speaking. How are we going to do this? And oh, Andrew, you've done some. Let's put you in front of this target, you know. And the beautiful thing is that we get these opportunities because we're more willing to have a go than maybe the majority of people. And then by just being in the spotlight, you learn, you read, you and it's the experience. So I'd love to sort of hear how you see PitchClub, because again, you're busy, you've got your own audiences, your own students, your own expectations that you have to meet, but you still come to PitchClub. Like, what is it? Without it becoming, I don't want to promo PitchClub, but I just want to talk about it, sort of how it helps people.
I would say there are 3 reasons for me to come to PitchClub. One is to listen to other professionals give feedback. Because I learn a ton by listening to what you say, or Kate says, or Colin says, or Andrew I see here, Rake is here. Like there's a good gang there.
Andrew's advice feedback last night was incredible.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
On target. I was like,
and to just sit and listen to other people, to listen to other people give feedback, and to so that's a piece of it. So it's professional development. This part 1's professional development. The other part is see how audiences respond to people pitching. So I love going to events when I've been coaching and actually sitting behind the stage and watching the audience. Because I want to know who's looking down, who's looking up, who's leaning in, who's smiling, who's like, you see the ripple of the crowd, right? Like if I had my druthers, I'd have a camera on the crowd. And PitchClub lets me do that every week. Like when somebody's pitching, I actually am often looking at I'm looking at the people in the audience. Because I want to see how the impact. Yeah. Sometimes I'm looking at the person because I want to be able to give them feedback, but I look at them and I can get a pretty good sense pretty quickly, and then I can switch focus. So there's been a professional development aspect of it for me that's been interesting to kind of be able to watch, right? And there's 4 or 5 of them every week. There's multiple people giving feedback. What do people give? What do other professionals give? But also, what do people who aren't professionals give feedback? How do they see the pitch happening? And I love that, because for me, I'm learning a lot about what audiences see and what other professionals see. I'll be shorter on the other two. One is pitching myself. I'm like, I tell you, it's the most nervous place for me to pitch, and it's because I care about my audience. And I care about what they think about me. Like, I feel like this is my gang, right? Like Andrew's here, Rake is here, Colin's here, Martin's here. I'm like, I want to be good at this. So it's actually, while you always position it as a low pressure moment, a low stakes moment. And I think it is a low stakes moment for the people who aren't professionals. For the people who are professionals, I think it's actually an incredibly high stakes moment, because you're pitching in front of other professionals.
I agree, and I've had the same experience. I would say that it's stakes without risk. So you take the stakes to wherever you want them to be. but there's zero risk. So you're not gonna get like, you're not gonna lose a client, you're not gonna lose a contract, you're not gonna lose anything financially or any professionally. And with and the reason I think it's such a powerful format is because you set the stakes in here by bringing your own expectations and your own baggage. And it's really interesting to hear you say this because it's the journey that I was on when I first started going to PitchClub in Beijing. But anyway, please continue.
What was the third one?
So you
So
did
one of them was pitching, one of them was professional development.
Yeah.
Oh, the third one is giving.
Oh, nice.
The third one for me is just it's like pro bono work, right? For me, I want to find places that obviously I like to find places I get paid, but I also like to find places that I can just give back. And I see it as a place that I can give back.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, we're lucky enough to have people like Jem, Tusimi, and Benjamin, and Odie who join us from Nigeria and Uganda. And I think I really value and appreciate what you said there, because it is when we're all in a room, well, like the pandemic has allowed us to all call in from all over the world. Like we've got Rekha from India on the call, and then Dimas from Argentina. And then we've also got the other guys. And for somebody who's at a pretty ground level situation in Uganda, who gets to sit and talk to a McGill professor and learn from you freely, that's incredible karma points. And what you can learn from them, and I learn from them, is enough reward for me to keep coming and doing it. I really like that sort of interaction of experiences and levels. I totally agree with you on that point.
It's the reason that I'm trying so hard to stay within academia, because I just and especially with the younger cohorts, right? The grad students, the postdocs, is because they're our future. And the work that's going on, academia gets a bad rap. But I'm telling you, if we survive the next 100 years, it's gonna be part of the reason. I won't say it's the reason, but part of the reason is gonna come from academia. Because people are figuring shit out. And people are figuring out technology to allow us to move away from fossil fuels, but people are also figuring out and studying other things like how do we survive as a planet when we have more workers than need? Like we can produce all the food we want now with like 2% of the population or something. I forget what the number is, but it wasn't that long ago. Like go back like 5,000 years and like, I don't know, 50% of the people had to produce food in order for people not to starve. And now it's like 2%. So what are we going to do in the future? Like, how does the meaning of work change? How do these are hard questions that, how do we get out of this mess that an unregulated internet has created of misinformation and disinformation? How do we figure, and it's like, it's gonna come from 25 and 30-year-olds studying stuff in labs and figuring out the technology. It's not, and it's only gonna get traction if they can communicate it
in simple but effective ways that aren't sensationalist or clickbait or misguided, but actually like, how do I reduce all of these years of standing on the shoulder of giants and incrementally improving our knowledge? How do I then communicate that in a way that doesn't alienate people or exclude people? one of the reasons I love what we do is because it is such an evergreen, timeless skill that is so zen and kung fu that there is no peak of the mountain, right? You are just constant. Like, as soon as you get to the top of what you think is a mountain, the mist clears and you're like, oh, there's another mountain to climb. You're like, oh God. and that brings me back to your first point about personal development. Like, it is such an honor to sit in the same pitch space as yourself and Mike and Colin and Joanne and other Darren, people who come and share their pitching expertise, but then also other professionals who aren't necessarily positioned themselves as presentation coaches or experts, but use presenting in their professional life at a high level, and they come and demonstrate it. And then they also, one thing that I think would be super interesting as we sort of wrap up this conversation is like how you feel about presenting. And when I first started going to PitchClub in Beijing, I used to get super nervous. Like, and the room was 10 or 15 or 20 people, but I put expectations on myself of leading by example and almost being flawless that I forgot to be authentic and vulnerable. And it took a while before I got comfortable in sort of saying, I can be the expert, but I don't have to be spotless and immaculate all the time, but you can wobble. And I've learned that that's actually a superpower, that you can kung fu energy back out to energy. So I think you felt the same, haven't you? I don't want to put words.
Yeah, I have. And I don't think it's the size of the room that makes people nervous. I think it's how much you care about your audience.
Okay.
And if the more you care about your audience, the more nervous you're going to be, because you want them to have a good experience. So that's, people get really nervous making a wedding speech, right?
Yes.
Because they have an audience that, like, that's their peeps. That's the audience they care about, right? And then they overcome it with a couple of drinks oftentimes before the speech, and that actually helps. But in the business world, you better not do that.
No. You have the opposite.
So you got to build strategies you got to build other strategies so that and we've talked about this, right? Like, what are your go-to strategies that make it so that the nervousness isn't going to be debilitating? Because you're never going to delete. I mean, some people delete the nervousness, I guess. I never have. But I've gotten better at managing it. And that's the key for me isn't can you do it without being nervous? It's can you manage your way through the nerves? Do you have some go-to strategies? Do you have some things you can fall back on that allow you to calm them? Right.
Exactly. I think my take on that sort of feeling is like you'll never not feel something before a pitching moment, because you're about to go in front of an audience you care about with goals in a moment that you can't reset. And if you go in with anticipation, you're ready for it. If you go in with anxiety, you're dreading it. And you're leaning back if you're anxious, you're leaning forward if you're anticipating. And when you're leaning in, you take your momentum with you. And that is when I think that you can see. So for example, yesterday, Patrick, another of our community members, he gave a 5-minute pitch to LinkedIn. He gave a 3-minute pitch in his pitch spot, and then he did a 1-minute pitch. And of those 3, the 2 impromptu, they were all impromptu, but 2 of them were more spontaneous than the other. They were better than the one that he sort of worked towards. And he didn't work towards it, but he said, I'm going to do this. The 3-minute pitch felt a little bit like you said, your feedback was there were too many stories. He was more natural and more fluid in the 5-minute pitch and the 1-minute pitch, because there was no anxiety. There was anticipation of being present, but there wasn't worried about what am I actually going to say. And I hope Patrick doesn't mind me sharing feedback live on the live, but I'll say sorry later.
I think it's an interesting space, right? As we prepare to talk. Like, that's just weird. Like, we talk all the time. Why do we have to prepare to talk? But if we don't prepare to talk, then it's not going to go very well. But we don't actually have a lot of practice doing prepared talking. 90% of our talking, or 99.9% of our talking, is unprepared. Like this, it's a conversation. So how do we get better at prepared talking? We'll do it a little more, and then get some help. Go to a place like PitchClub, or go out and hire someone, or go watch. There are a gazillion free YouTube videos. Go start leafing through them. Some of them are great. Some of them aren't. That's the problem with the free stuff. But mostly just do it. Like, as you always say, Martin, if there's an opportunity to be on stage, seize it.
Yeah. Do you know where I got that from?
And you'll get better at it. And there's some best practices. There are absolutely some things that if you want to do a prepared talking moment that goes well, they're best practices. Like, and it's not just practice. Like, if you practice something that's not very good, it'll just be well rehearsed, not very good.
Yeah, it's practicing with intention and getting feedback from people who can help. I mean, Patrick, who again is the community member, I work with him on my fitness, and he asked me about my push-ups, and I said I could do 30 push-ups, and he asked me to demonstrate my technique, and he said, well, you can do 30 push-ups, but they're all the wrong way. And then he tweaked my posture. I could do one push-up. So going from doing it elbows out the wrong way to elbows parallel to my body, I went from doing 30 to 1, and that 1 was a real struggle. But I didn't know that until I worked with somebody, or I got somebody else's opinion or advice or feedback. And exactly like you said, you can go and watch 100 YouTube videos, you can read the books, but until you stand on stage, whether that's a virtual stage, a stage of 1, a stage of 1,000, you won't get better until you have a go. And you said the thing that I'm often caught saying is, like, never say no to the stage. And I got that from Seth Godin. So I remember in one of the many pieces of content that Seth Godin's put out there, he's always like, if you want to improve your career, get on stage at an event, because then you've got 10, 50, 100 people watching you, instead of you doing one-on-one conversations in the networking. And he said, you don't have to be perfect. And I just remember that going, that makes so much sense. Like, if you can, and the only person that's stopping you getting on stage
is you. Yeah. The other thing is, stop getting useless feedback.
Yeah.
So don't ask your friends how you did, because they're just, how'd I do is not helpful. Now, if you ask a professional how you did, that's different. But asking someone who doesn't study this stuff, how'd I do, isn't. It's like it's like asking. So you asked how'd I do with the push-up to someone who's a professional trainer. Everybody else, like, you've gotten feedback from thousands of people in your life on how good you are at push-ups. They all said you were great. It wasn't until that moment that you realized, right? But there is something you can ask. You can ask, what did I say? And if you start asking people after you talk, what did I say? What do you want to learn more about after listening to me? Those two questions. Ask people to tell you what that you said, and ask Ask people what they want to learn more about. And if they can't tell you what they said, what you said, then you did a lousy job. Sorry. They can't remember.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how good it is what you said. They don't remember. And if they're not interested in, if you say, what would you like to learn more about? And they kind of hem and haw, they don't have something right there, then you didn't do a great job either. Because when you finish, people should want to hear more.
It should become a conversation, isn't it? It's like, I think
it should be the beginning of a conversation.
Exactly. There's this sort of new, well, not new, but more, maybe it's just the circles and the stream and the algorithm, but there are more and more people in sales and pitching who are using conversation, the word conversation. So it's kind of like, it's gone from like, hey, you need to tell a story, which is so true. But then it also is like, how does that story start a conversation? And a pitch is a one-way thing, but it also, in many contexts, needs to be a two-way thing. And that.
Iris has a great quote up here about how you feel versus what you said, right?
Yeah.
The famous Maya Angelou quote.
Exactly.
People don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, in here.
And I would argue, people, I think people can remember what you said. Because we'll get going on story now, because people can remember stories, right? People can't remember data. Like if you just feed them data, they won't remember that.
However, we are going to have to say story.
Yeah, we got to stop.
Chapter 2 of our LinkedIn live conversation. So before we say thank you to Andrew, let's say thank you to Daniel. Thank you for joining and your comments. Thank you for Rekha, Dimas, Andrew, and some other members of our chat. Archie.
What do we got? Daniel's got a comment there about authentic and humbling. I want to see that. Can we scroll to it?
I can't. I need to figure out more of this.
Authentic and humbling chat. Strongly support. Oh, maybe us. We're authentic with each other. Yeah, it's true. I don't have a lot of filter.
So we're going to wrap this up. And I'm going to say a massive thank you, Andrew, for not only being an amazing member of the PitchClub community, but also joining us today. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we'll have part 2. We'll have some other guests next week and the week after, but we'll invite you back for sure. So tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
LinkedIn, that's it.
Just LinkedIn.
Not on Facebook, not on Instagram, not on TikTok.
Not on TikTok? My God.
Not on TikTok.
I'm
not on Facebook. How crazy is that?
What should people come and talk to you about? If they want help, how do you help people? How can people reach out to you? And
yeah, so if you have a presentation coming up and you want help, there's a Calendly link. Set up a 30-minute Calendly link. I'll listen to your pitch or your presentation or look at your pitch deck, wherever you are. Come tell me what you're trying to do. And I offer kind of a free 30-minute, hopefully not too many people find out about it. And I do 30 minutes free forever. But what I like to do is have you come with your pitch and do it. And then we'll start talking about it. And I'll, if you like it and you think it would be helpful and you want to work together, great. If not, you get something out of it anyway. And I get something out of it because I've helped one more person in the world, which is what I like doing. So sometimes it turns into a longer engagement, and sometimes it's 30 minutes and done. Either way is cool.
Exactly. You can one and done, and sometimes that's all people need, isn't it, to unblock them.
They just need a tweak.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, guys, take Andrew up on his offer. Go find him on LinkedIn, connect, chat, follow, do all that great stuff. And thank you all for joining us on this PitchClub Live. We love your attention, value it, and look forward to seeing you soon. So drop some questions in the comments. We'll follow up later. And come and join us at PitchClub. If you're in the Far East, go to Pitch Club Chapter 1, which is on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. Beijing time. And if you're in anywhere else in the world and it suits you, 5:30 p.m. GMT is our Thursday group. So everybody is welcome. We will add the links about, you'll see me in LinkedIn talking about this a lot. So search Pitch Club and you'll find out more about it. So thank you very much, everybody.
And you don't have to pitch. You can just come.
And you can, yes, you can either jump
Although
in.
we'll get you, if you do come, we'll get you pitching.
Exactly. Well, that's it. It's a beautiful feedback. What I love about the Pitch Club format is the feedback is the first step of actually finding your voice, which I think is awesome. So anyway, I've got to go to get my kids from school and we've all got to get on with our Fridays. So adios.
Have an awesome weekend, everybody.
Excellent.
Go do something fun.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, everyone. Speak to you later.
Cheers.
Bye.